Hello to all the homeopaths and homeopathic students across the world. The homeopath whom I am going to interview today is the honorary professor at the University of the Aegean, Greece. He is honorary professor at the Moscow Medical Academy. He is professor at the Kiev Medical Academy and collaborating professor at the Basque Medical University, and Dr. honoris causa at Dr. Victor Babes University of Medicine and Pharmacy of Timisoara in Romania. Can you guess his name? In 1995, he established the International Academy of Classical Homeopathy in Ilonissos, Greece, and in 1996, he was honored with the Right Livelihood Award, also known as the Alternative Nobel Prize. I'm sure you are able to guess his name, but there's more to him and I would like to share. He's the author of some of the best-selling homeopathy books ever. He's considered the most influential homeopath of the 21st century, and he has trained more than 10,000 doctors at his academy in Ilonissos. We are very, very pleased to have with us today Professor George Vithoulkas. Professor Vithoulkas, welcome to homeopathy.com. It's a pleasure to have you again with us on a hot seat and do a live interview.
Thank you, Manish, and I appreciate your efforts and I appreciate your good words.
Thank you so much, Professor. Professor, I've interviewed you 4 times by now, and this is going to be my 5th interview with you. So I have been wondering what is left to ask you. One thing that has intrigued me in your lectures, which I have seen in videos and also in your live class here at the Academy, is that you often mention about India. You seem to have a very, very strong connection with India. I know that you have studied in India for 3 years, but that was long back. But you still, there's hardly a class that goes by in which you don't mention something about India, Indian values, Indian ethos, Indian culture. Tell us more about your India connection.
Well, I cannot explain it, but it seems that when I was in India, these 3 years, I never felt homesick for Greece. When I came back to Greece, I felt homesick for India. So there was something which in India culture, in Indian mentality, in Indian way of life that suit me very much and appreciate it. And what I appreciated mostly, of course, was the love that existed within the families, the Indian families, which at the moment I was there, really, it was a very strong connection between the family members. And perhaps it is because I never felt this in my young years, because I lost my parents when I was very young, and I never felt this warmth of the family that I appreciated very much, the Indian way of living. So that's one thing. The second maybe is the people I met in India. They gave me so much love, and I gave them also, and created a connection on an emotional level that was really impressive for me and stayed in my memories very vividly. So more or less this is the connection. I cannot say that from the homeopathic point of view it was the best time, but still I enjoyed even that, though I changed several times, several schools there, etc.
You studied in Bombay and Calcutta.
Yes, and I went back, to Calcutta, where they told me B.K. Bose was practicing teaching, and that he was the direct student of Kant. For me, that was a myth, you know this. Kant was really a person who had appreciated tremendously in his books, in his expositions, in his materia medica, in his theory. For me, it was the great guru after Hahnemann. And I was really excited to go and find B.K. Bose in Calcutta. In Calcutta, of course, B.K. Bose was 85-year-old by the time I went there. Yeah, he was having already his life, you know. And, but still I enjoyed the contact with him. He was very excited when he told the students that here is a student that has come from so far to study in India, and you are lazy and you don't study, etc. And here is a man who came to study. Eventually, our relation was a little bit upset because somebody told him that George is not studying homeopathy, he's studying allopathic medicine, because they have come to my room and they have seen I was reading the allopathic books for practice of medicine, etc. And that made him so upset that he didn't want to talk to me anymore. And I did not know why, until somebody came and told me this was the reason. But it was all very nice. I mean, I never held any grudge against him. He was a great person and a great prescriber also.
And what was
so
the kind
this
of...
was, in a nutshell, my story in India.
And what was the kind of homeopathy that was being practiced at that time in India?
The kind of medicine was polypharmacy.
Polypharmacy.
It was polypharmacy and was superficial. The way that it was taught, it was quite superficial and not really teaching Hahnemannian homeopathy. And I was disappointed, of course, but still the Indian way of life and everything that was happening was so exciting that these 3 years I passed in India were the best years of my life, because it was the only years I did not work. All the other years in my life, from 11 to 30 when I was to India, to 27, and so to 30 actually, 62 years. And then 3 years no working, and after 65, 66 started working again until now. Still I have not asked to take my pension. You see, I was due for a pension about 20 years ago, but I do not take it. I like to work because I like homeopathy, as you know.
Yes, that's so
and
true.
I like it very much.
You were practicing homeopathy or studying homeopathy even when you were in Africa.
Yes.
And then you started studying in India, where you saw a lot of polypharmacy happening.
Yes.
So what was your grounding in classical homeopathy? Where did you learn the practice of classical homeopathy from?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot say I had some teachers in homeopathy, because in South Africa, where I was first came in contact with homeopathy, there was no classical homeopathy. It was a school teaching polypharmacy, and when I went there and I found out their curriculum, what they taught, it was, for me, it was forbidden. Forbidden to go there. And I kept on studying myself. I studied, I could say 12 hours a day in the first 12 years. And that was a pleasure for me. You see, if somebody hears he's studying so many hours, how it's possible? But it's like someone who has great pleasure in reading something which excites me so much, and I was so happy to read homeopathic articles, homeopathic literature, of theory, the organon, the Kant's Materia Medica, especially Kant's philosophy and lesser writings, and all the old masters. In these 3 years between 60 and 63, when I went to India, I have read practically everything that was written so far as classical homeopathy. Of course, I choose the books I read, and I never read books with specialities and mixopathy and all that. I was not interested. But the interesting thing, perhaps, is for this interview to know that I came in contact with homeopathy after an accident with my car, which I had. Before that, I have been told about homeopathy, but I did not pay attention. And actually, there was a man who pretended to be a teacher of homeopathy and practicing homeopathy, and he was given specialities.
Complexes.
So I had a very severe, by that time, severe hay fever I was suffering, and I asked, what about hay fever complex? You see, he said, yes, take this bottle. I took the bottle, I suppressed the hay fever, and I lost my energy. I said, well, what is this? So I rejected this as well, until I had that accident with my car. And then I thought, what shall I do now? I cannot travel going to see my friends. I must read something. What should I read? I called a friend. I said, what is this little black book that you had in your desk? He says, Berica Materia Medica. Where can I buy it? You buy it in Joubert Street, Nelson's Pharmacy. So I took the bus, I went there, bought the book, and I started reading the book in the bus coming back. And I read the whole book. This Berica Materia Medica I had read right through within 2-3 days. Later on, I went back to the pharmacy and I picked up the books that I wanted to read. I picked up Hahnemann's books, Kent's books, and some Farrington and Dunham and some others that I skimmed through the books and I saw this is interesting, I'll take it. When I went to the pharmacy with all this bag, he said, you will not understand anything. Why you take this? You are a novice. Take the book Tissue Salts by Süssler. Then you start. No. I said, no, I'll take this. I take this back in my car and went back and I started studying. This was interesting because all this story, because I had an accident and I started homeopathy after the accident. When I was in America, Greek-American psychiatrist who kept on saying when I was teaching there, he was in the class, come, I want to take you for dinner. I want to take you for dinner. I said, okay, we come for dinner one night. So in the car, he asked me, he says, I want to ask you, is it true that you started homeopathy after having an accident in which you were thrown out of the car, and as you were lying unconscious in the street, Berica Materia Medica, that book, fell from the sky in your lap. And then when you came back, I said to him, do you believe this? He says, I was told this story by a serious person.
More myths about George Vithoulkas.
Yes,
I just heard Carlos speaking about you, another myth, that when he first heard about you, he heard that George Vithoulkas is the owner of Ilonisos.
he's the owner of Alonis's, yes. Yes, I had some yachts there, and
Yes.
it was the rumor was going on. You know, there's always a myth going together with.
Even I knew, even I heard a myth that George Vithoulkas has his own helicopter and he travels all across Greece in his
Yes.
helicopter.
Yes. That is true, because some rich people, in order to reach me, they come by helicopter.
Yes.
And of course, this is natural for them because they have a lot of money. They can afford it. So people have seen the helicopters come, and they have seen, actually by the time that the BBC was here or the German television was here, one of my patients was coming with helicopter and they filmed it. So the story went out that I have my own helicopter and I don't know what else I have. Yeah, the fact is that I feel that I'm very rich because I have everything I need.
Yes.
And I
think
never needed something which I did not have. So I feel I'm rich. So if they ask me, are you rich? Yes, I'm very rich. I have everything.
I have seen the love that you get from your students here, and I think that makes you the richest homeopath in this earth.
Exactly.
Yes.
So this is the great riches.
It is wonderful to know that you are a self-made homeopath, and this makes me send out a message to all the homeopathic students across the world. I have seen homeopathic students crib about their level of homeopathic education, the teachers, the poor education that they receive, the teachers not teaching them enough, students not getting enough clinical education, and they take this as an excuse for practicing polypharmacy, for doing allopathy, and for not following homeopathy. Here is the man, the best homeopath in this world, and you can learn from him. He says that he is a self-made man. He learned from the books. He studied homeopathy 12 hours a day for 12 years before he was confident of his results. Ask yourself, for how long do you study homeopathy? How many hours of education that you get? How many hours you study homeopathic books? How many times have you studied Hahnemann, Kent, Borig, Boger, Dunham, Allen, Lippe? If you don't study, if you don't put in all the hard work, then you have no excuse for not practicing homeopathy, well enough. You can excuse yourself by blaming your teachers and your colleges, but if you really want to be a homeopath, a good homeopath, a classical homeopath, a Hahnemann homeopath, then you have to put in hard work, and George Vithoulkas is a living example for all of us for that. George, another aspect that I feel about you, and I also see in your lectures, is that you have got a strong spiritual connection. There is, I know that you once mentioned in an interview long back that you read a lot of spiritual literature and that you have many spiritual influences. What to you is spirituality?
You see, first of all, I must explain why is this element in me. As I said, I lost both my parents during the Second World War, and I saw quite a lot of my relatives died or killed during the war. So there was immediately, in my very young years, questions arising. What is the purpose of us being here in this life? So from the very young age, I think I was 12 or 13 already, I had a strong urge for spiritual understanding. Why we are here? What are we doing? So my first connection was with Christianity. A younger man, he was 18, he was connected with Christian philosophy, and we had long discussion. I was 13, 14. We had long discussions, and I became attracted. And the element of spirituality, that means trying to find out who are we, why we are here, what is our purpose, is there is any purpose, or it is just accidental entities here in the earth. All this was from the very young year because most probably of what I have seen as life. The first impression for life was that life could stop from one moment to the other because of people fighting, especially because of wars. That's why I'm so much against the aggression and the wars in the world. And when I speak politically, I am very, very forceful in promoting peaceful ideas because the experience has molded me that when people fight with each other, the end result is terrible. So therefore, that was my line of thinking since the very young age. So eventually, as a young man, of course, I never involved in drugs or anything like that. But I was involved with the girls, with the love affairs, with things like that. I saw the good things of a love affair, the bad things of breaking away, etc., which I'm teaching now. I saw the whole thing. But all this created even stronger urge to find out of who we are, why we are here, etc. And there was a driving force. Then I came in contact with the Hindu philosophy, and through some books I had read. And then I decided I will go to India, even to find out if what the books are writing is correct. They have found the connection with God through their practices, through their way of life, etc. So that spiritual element was there all along. That means a search for finding out the purpose in life. And I cannot say I have found the purpose of life. What I found on the way, it was a system of healing that could give peace to the people. Because I saw the aggression in the people reducing. So I saw the negative feelings could be reduced with a homeopathic remedy. So actually, I felt this search, spiritual search, was leading me to a path where I had to spread what I understood. It was bringing more peace and love to the people in a very practical way. So I followed this. I changed my path. Instead of staying in the monasteries on the Himalayas or wherever, enclosed in a place where I will pray and meditate or whatever from morning till night to save the world, I felt this is a more practical way to do it. So homeopathy and spirituality for me, are intermingled, are one complementing the other, and it is a great boon to the humanity if Hahnemann's teaching really could go through to the societies which are suffering at the moment. so much. So this is spirituality for me. This is my practical way of
Being
spiritual development.
Hahnemann said that we all have a higher purpose of existence, and homeopathy helps us attain that higher purpose of existence. What is the higher purpose of existence for you?
The higher purpose of existence. Well, it's not for me to say, but anyhow, I can say a few things, because I feel. You see, I have announced many years ago that I will write, the final book I will write will be the meaning and the purpose of diseases. What is the meaning of diseases and what is the purpose of diseases and the suffering? And this connects with your question, because I felt that humans, or the first humans, were people who had the connection with what's called the divine or the God, or constant connection. And they were living in a very blissful state, in a very happy state, full of energy and full of completeness inside. So there was a time when this was ruptured because of some actions on the humans, and they lost the connection. And after that, all that we try to do is to find again the connection. So some, they find it, as I have said many times, in a love affair which is quite, how can I say, a love affair which one feels that completes the other. Such a love affair gives the feeling of paradise in the two people who are involved. Yes. But most of the people still have lost this possibility to find the exact counterpart that will fit and will give them the feeling of being in paradise. Yes. So therefore, the next thing that they have to do out of the suffering they go through is to find out finally this connection, one way or another. But until they find this connection again, and this feeling that is generated from this connection, which is a feeling of total love, total bliss, total happiness, where you feel nothing is missing. You are a complete human being when you are in connection. So the people will go through a lot of suffering before they can end up finding this connection. And a lot of, how can I say, people have to suffer a lot. Why is this? I don't know. But this is my experience.
Indian philosophy says that people themselves are the reason for their own suffering.
Well, you can say this. Yes.
If they are able to identify who they really are,
yes,
then all suffering will vanish.
Sure.
We are all living in a world of delusion.
Yes, correct.
But still, the people who are very scientifically minded, they will still say that what about the theory of evolution? What about the Neanderthal man? All the species from which human beings have evolved, the apes, which have evolved to Homo sapiens. If the theory of evolution is right, then how do we explain this feeling that there was a time when human beings had a higher spiritual connection, higher spiritual awareness?
You see, I feel that the humanity as it exists today has taken the wrong turn. You see, technical civilization has exploded. Spiritual inner evolution has diminished. So that gave a direction to humanity, which is totally wrong at this moment. We call it scientific society and all this nonsense. What is scientific? What is science and scientific? It is a matter of great question. What is really? What do they mean by a scientific? By scientific, they mean only if this is a black box and I see it's a black box and I can see it, then that's scientific. But nobody can tell me how this box transmits something which is immaterial, something which is waves.
Energy.
And how came my energy, how from a sperm and an ovum coming together, I became
me,
yes. How do they explain this? So the what we call scientific way of thinking is a very superficial way of looking upon life. We should change completely, I think, our structure and our concept of what is valid and what is superficial.
Now, that brings me to two separate thoughts and questions. One, I feel that the homeopaths who are doing polypharmacy, complexes, therapeutics, they are not spiritually evolved enough to understand the true depth of homeopathy. They are stuck into the material scientific world. So from that point of view, the material thought is not good for them. But on the other hand, today we are trying to understand homeopathy in scientific terms, trying to understand what our potencies are, what happens during the process of succussion and trituration. We are trying to prove our potencies through nuclear magnetic resonance, different forms of spectroscopy, different kinds of blind, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. We are trying to find out, differentiate one drug from another drug, one remedy from another remedy in different potencies. This is totally a material science. So, is this good or not?
You see, from one side, it's good because the world wants to see the proof. What is this that you give at 10M potency, where nothing exists but energy, as you call it, etc., etc. The problem is that this is asked by a society, by a world which is turned totally materialistic. They don't realize the value of energy. They don't realize the source of energy, and they don't realize most of it. They don't realize the love which flows in an individual who is really outside of this scientific frame of mind. An old man of a village can give you an advice which is much more concrete and much more useful than a scientist who will advise you on an issue. You see, all American people, almost all, they have what they call a psychiatrist to ask advice. Most of them, what they say, your wife bothers you, send away your wife. Your mother bothers you, send away your mother. Be free, be yourself, be blah, blah, blah. What they are saying is, forget about love, forget about positive emotions, forget about what gives you pleasure, really. Concentrate on what is ephemeral, pleasurable condition. And in this way, we have created this kind of society which leads us away from anything that is spiritual in us. People say, what is spiritual? What do you bother? But when we see the patients, we see they are suffering tremendously. And what bothers them is actually this lack of spiritual connection. It's bothering them, the feeling that they feel incomplete, they feel out of touch, they feel alone, they feel loneliness, they feel depression, they feel anxiety. Because the love that should be there to connect with the others and to take away all these negative feelings is not there anymore. Now they come to the position, they say, oh, we are scientists, will find a way to do what? To take away your depression. Yes, but you give me a drug to take away my depression. But at the same time, I go into an anxiety state which is worse than the depression. So what is the good of the taking remedies, taking drugs that will close one problem I have and will create another? What is the good of that? It's a vicious circle. So I don't want that. And until the world realizes the vicious circle of that kind of materialistic attitude, low potencies in homeopathy, you see, the equivalent is low potencies in homeopathy, because low potencies will act in everyone, yes, of course, but will close down, will suppress rather than cure. Sometimes it cures, of course, because between 30 remedies you gave, there is one which is really the minimum, and people, they feel freed, etc. But this is not happening frequently. This is happening very few times.
Long back, probably 20 years back, in an interview in India, you said that you believe that in future homeopathic remedies will be given in the forms of waves, probably through machines.
Yes. Yeah, that's a big story, because when I was in California, I was teaching there, I was receiving an invitation from the National Institute of Health, from a group where they were dealing with this issue. They were trying to find a box in which you enter, they give you the right wavelength that your organism needs, and you will be cured. So they called me. At the moment, I did not know why they were calling me, but I was so exhausted. They said, come as we go back to Greece, pass from the National Institute of Health, and the group was ready to hear my ideas about this. So I said, no, I cannot come because I'm exhausted. So they sent somebody in Athens to interview me. And we discussed this matter. And what I said is that if you try to do this, you will find the great problems with the wavelengths of all kinds of things which happen in Earth. And it will be very difficult to isolate what is the wavelength of the particular organism you are examining. Therefore, you have to isolate all other influences in order to record exactly the wavelength of that particular organism. So you can give it back from the outside with a machine, you give the wavelength of that particular person. Because the wave you will record will be always mixed with the wavelengths of the Earth, of the satellites, of
the whole cosmos.
Yeah, of the whole cosmos. So how can you isolate? So we had long discussion, and I believe this idea was given up by the Institute of Health during that time. I'm talking about 83, 84, around 85, around that time.
You gave that interview in 1994.
94, you see, yes. So I have said several things. I have said in Chile, I have said that if we knew the conditions or the symptoms that could be created by the 94 elements of the periodic table,
yes,
we could, with all that alone, cure everybody. But if we prove properly, yes, and if we have done the proper job, then maybe one day we'll reduce the necessary remedies, because now we're using 2,000 remedies, okay? But that was an idea, just threw this idea, and one student of mine took the idea and made a school out of it, with imagining what certain element could produce as a proving. So that caused rather pain and confusion. Like the same way when I said about the giving back the wavelength which the organism needs, created a kind of confusion, because many people thought they could do that quite easily.
Yeah, there are many people doing it through Vega machines,
Yes.
pendulums,
Yes, yes.
pressure points, muscle testing.
Yes.
So, and they feel that they are able to find the simillimum using these methods. Do you feel that it is possible to identify homeopathic remedies without taking the symptoms into consideration?
I don't believe. And I have tested that. I've tested people who claim they could do it. I said, okay, show me. They could not. When it comes to the real test, they fail. You see, while I was treating in Switzerland, I was treating the followers of Krishnamurti, who were a lot of the intelligentsia of the time coming from all over the world. So there was a man coming actually from South America, Costa Rica, I can't remember, a very rich man. So he had a pendulum. He said to me, I am 82 or 83 years old, and have lived so far because of this pendulum. I said, what do you do with the pendulum? He says, I check everything, whether it's good or bad for me, with the pendulum. I said, is that true? I'm interested. So I took his case, and he said, I cannot take your remedy you will give me unless I check it with the pendulum. I said, fine. So I said to myself, okay, I will give him placebo to see what he will say. If he will say, this is nothing for me, I will start having some doubts. So I gave him the placebo. One day I brought him, put some sugar, I gave it to him. So he checked it with the pendulum, and the next day he comes and he says, you take it back. I said, oh my God, he found out. He said, if I take this medicine, I will have such a reaction that I may not live. I said, you better don't take it, because by self-suggestion, he had heard that people who were taking my remedies, they had big aggravations. So he heard it because they talk between them, etc. And he said, maybe I will not survive if I take your remedy. So I said, okay, don't worry, give it back to me.
So the pendulum didn't work.
So the pendulum did not work. But it was several times. People claimed all these kind of things. When I tried to test, it didn't work. There was another time, people like stories. Another time where a Hollander, a medical doctor, said, I have a patient who can hold one of your hypotheses and can say if there is a potency or not.
Yes, I've heard that.
You know the story, okay? So you know, yes, she was not able. When we tested, we gave 10 bottles, 3 of them were potentized. In 3 efforts she made, she could not spot even one time of one of the 3 bottles that were potentized.
We see that there are many positive studies with homeopathic complexes, especially with hay fever. There are many positive studies. How do we explain to the scientific community, how do we conduct tests with homeopathy? Because I'm asking you because I have recently come across studies which you have been part of. I have with me here a study, Homeopathy for Infertility Treatment, a case series which you were part of, and it was done here in Greece. And the results have been overwhelmingly positive.
Yes.
So, and this has been published in a peer-reviewed journal, a scientific journal. How should we do research in homeopathy? How should we hold trials in homeopathy so that we are able to document the efficacy of homeopathy and the results are scientific? Results are scientific in a way which are not difficult to accept by the community, scientific community, where they cannot attribute the results of homeopathy to placebo or suggestion.
You see, first of all, in this research, whatever concerns homeopathic research, people that know homeopathy should be involved. If people, scientists in general, are involved with such an experiment, it will go wrong because they don't know the details and how they should structure an experiment like that. An experiment of that type should be first choosing a pathology which can be documented. a pathology which can be documented. What it is sinusitis, for instance, where you can see with an X-ray what's going on.
Good.
And once you choose this pathology, then you will have to treat a lot of patients individually. And treat them in such a way that some of them will take placebo and some of them will take the remedy. But the homeopath does not know, treats everybody. But the computer says, number 1, you give placebo. Number 2, you give the remedy. Number 3, give the remedy. Number 4, the remedy. Number 5, placebo. Number 7, placebo, etc. So you don't know, you're treating the cases. The homeopath gives the correct remedy for each case, and in the end they open the results and they see what happened for those who took the remedy and those who took placebo. So this is a simple experiment, but in order to be organized such an experiment, you need, first of all, to have good homeopaths prescribing. You cannot say in the beginning, give calibichromicum for everyone. For everyone. You cannot say that. So that means you have to have good homeopaths prescribing. That's the first condition. The second condition is that you will have enough numbers of cases so it can be proven very clearly what are the results. And the third condition is to have enough money to organize such an experiment. Such an experiment done in a hospital where there is supervision, a lot of doctors involved, prescribers, etc., computers, robots that will choose the remedy, etc., etc. It's an experiment that may cost from 300,000 of euros to $500,000 of euros. Now, who can give this money? You see, we try to have this 1 million from Randy, you know, and we try to organize it in such a way, and I accepted to reduce the cost by asking people to do prescribing for no money, etc., and a lot of donations, etc., in order to start the experiment. When Randy shows that I will not back up, he thought, if we start this experiment, George will get out. Instead of me get out, he got out. Suddenly, one day, when everything was ready to start the experiment, he wrote a letter and he said, no, I don't accept all this. We'll start from the beginning, and George has to do the experiment himself first, prove that there is a positive, and then we will repeat it together with my supervision. And I was amazed because for 5 years we were preparing this experiment, and all the time he never said, I will go out of the experiment. Now suddenly he wanted to go out of the experiment, and George did not comply with the requirements. But he had agreed from the very beginning that these are the conditions. He comes in the end, he says, but the condition is that the experiment has to be done first by somebody and then repeated by my supervision. But for 5 years, he did not say that.
anything.
And for 5 years, we spent lots of money, energy, organizing, etc. And in the end, when everything is ready, you come and say, no, I don't agree. You see, we start all over again. You do the experiment first yourself. Where could I find all this money?
He probably needed an excuse to run
He
away.
needed an excuse, of course, because he felt he would lose
The money.
the money
And the reputation.
and his reputation. He felt that the BBC, because I had requested that the BBC will be involved in the experiment. And yes, if we fail, the BBC can say they fail. But could you imagine him handing me over 1 million in front of the whole
I would
world
have
for
loved to see that.
accepting?
I would have loved to see
Yeah,
that.
I would love this too, because a lot of people, they told me, he's an unreliable person, don't get involved with him. And a lot of people told me, I said, no. I said yes, and I will continue until the end. So that is the kind of research that I could be involved and I could give directions.
George, another controversy that has besieged homeopathy is the internal division. I was speaking to Carlos just a few hours ago, and he also said that in Latin America, every country has its own school. And they are not teaching Hahnemann homeopathy. They are just following one guru, and each country has its own guru that they are following. And this is probably true for most part of the world. There are today n number of gurus, n number of school of thoughts, and you have been very, very critical of some of them. In fact, you have been at the center of this whole controversy, and there has been a whole divide within the community.
How do I deal with that?
No, I'm
What
not
do I
asking
think?
you how you deal with that. I want something more deeper.
I will tell you something. We were in a congress, I think we were in America, in an international congress, the Liga Congress. And Twentyman, have you heard the name Twentyman, a medical doctor from England?
No.
Anyhow, that was, been before the 1980, I can't remember now.
Okay.
We were in an international congress, and
I was 3 years
different
old, so I
speak-
might not
2
have
years
heard.
old you were, yeah. And each speaker got up and presented his own idea. So this man, Dr. Twentyman, was a very impressive guy, with well-educated, with good English, very impressive in speech. So he got up in the podium, because they had heard of my insistence of being classical, giving one remedy, blah, 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 and all that. So in order to counteract my impression in the Congress, he got up and said, after all, each country should be left alone to have the rules and the laws they like. As you said, each country has different laws.
It's like having different laws of physics in each country.
Yes.
A law of gravitation that varies from country to country.
I got up and I said, Dr. Twentyman wants a different law for England, not the law of similarity. So most probably he has no respect for laws of nature, because this is a law of nature. So therefore, I would like to see how he will feel when he ignores the law of gravity, when he is in the 5th floor of a building and he jumps down. Most probably the law will not work for him in
England.
London. So there was this controversy was going on and on and on, and I could not go away from this loss. I said, yes, there are some new things which are happening, but I would like to see them first, to test them, to see there's an improvement of the existing situation, and then I will admit that this is very good and this is an improvement. Unless you prove to me that you can treat better by giving remedies of the periodic table instead of giving remedies which are really indicated. Unless you prove to me this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell you what I think about this. I told to the Congress now they had in England, and I was speaking, and I said, I love you very much, but I don't agree with many things that you are teaching. And this I am adamant because if I change the course of action and I say, well, everything goes, it is like admitting that whatever anyone can say and inject into the system is acceptable, as long as somebody says that. Why?
My question to you, George, is that our community is sick.
Is sick.
We are diseased. As a community, we are diseased. And probably at level 8 or 9.
I hope not.
Well, the way I see it, we have stopped having fevers anymore. We have just accepted the pathology.
Yeah.
How do we heal the community?
How do we? I believe, Manish, I believe that something which is not true will fall out by itself. I don't need to even fight. A lot of times I have thought, I'm going to write, sit down and write why this is wrong, why that is wrong, why that, and explain it and give the arguments. But when I ask myself, does this worth your effort? Does this justify your time that you are going to give in such an effort to prove that this is wrong for this and that reason? Always I came to the conclusion that it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You will fall out. You may say, but people are misled and a lot of people are following wrong ideas and all that. It's their problem. I say it's their problem. The students that are come here, most of them, they come from these lines. They come after they have tried polypharmacy, specialities, all kinds of different theories, etc. Some of them, they change. Some of them, they go back and they continue to practice the same way. It's not my problem. My problem is to give them as clearly as possible what I know. So from there on, they can go further. And I'm very happy when I see some of my students be successful in prescribing. I'm very happy. I said, yes, it may continue. Because a lot of people were afraid that after Kent everything was lost and homeopathy went down and nothing remained, and this is going to happen with you now. People will not be able to analyze a case the way you do. You will not be able to find the remedy in complicated cases. So homeopathy will go down the drain. I don't know. I don't believe, or I don't want to believe that this is going to happen.
So what future do you believe?
What?
What future do you believe awaits homeopathy?
Homeopathy will spread all over the world once the mentality of the world changes 180 degrees. When the mentality from materialistic become spiritual, becomes how can I say, spiritual, maybe it's not the right word. Now the world is going towards a path which concerns itself with how much the individual will earn, will gain, how much the individual will project himself either with skills, ambitions, money, riches, etc., etc. The individual. When the world will change to how much I will be happy if the others are happy, if I can give them something that will make them happy, if the individuals, if the mentality of the world changes from that selfish attitude to an attitude of community, love and helping each other, then homeopathy will spread together. As long as the society will remain a selfish society, egoistic, etc., homeopathy will be resisted because it's not a healing for that type of society.
So probably another 500 years before we see
500 years.
Because the
I have calculated that maybe in 3,500
we'll be able to see that.
we'll be able to see that. A society totally different. But not very soon.
The kind of society we are living in today, I don't see it happening anytime soon either.
Anytime soon, no.
But what as homeopaths we should do to move forward in that direction? Because we cannot just give up simply because it's not happening anytime soon. Even if there are people who will strive, who will work in that direction, only then a larger change will occur in society. So what we as individual homeopaths and as the society, as the community of homeopaths should be striving for doing to make that far future come a bit earlier?
Well, the same question was asked in the Congress I spoke in London, same question. Okay. So my answer was, they said actually how we, the younger generation, can contribute something through homeopathy which will be valid, etc. I said, spend your time mostly on studying and less on pleasure. The moment that you get the enthusiasm of this science, then you have to apply yourself and study, really study. But in order to do that, you have to reduce the time you are spending in pleasurable things, playing cards, taking drugs, and doing all kinds of wasting your time in meaningless things.
The fire should burn within.
Yeah.
The passion should be ignited.
Passion, yes. should carry them.
One of the problems that I feel today, the reason that homeopathic students are not so passionate about homeopathy is the quality of education that they are getting, and that they are not able to see results in practice. The teachers that are teaching today are not good clinicians themselves. What should we do to improve the standards of homeopathic education around the world? I know you are very passionate about this subject, and we have discussed creating a new organization for accreditation and regulation of homeopathic education globally. What are your ideas about that? How should, as a community, we move forward to create better standards of homeopathic education and to ensure that every student of homeopathy, wherever he is living, in whichever college he is studying, he gets access to the best standards and the best teachers of homeopathy, to ensure that the future generation of homeopaths are well trained, well educated, and have the depth as human beings to make that far future come a bit earlier.
Yeah, there's a big question we have discussed again, and you know my ideas about that. So what I can say at this moment is that the teachers who are teaching homeopathy, which are responsible for education, actually, because education comes through individual teachers, okay. These teachers who are teaching really the practice of homeopathy should be able to treat and cure cases in front of the public, should be able to demonstrate the power of homeopathy, of a high potency. And unless this happens, the education for homeopathy will be on a theoretical level with a lot of theories, with a lot of words and blah blahs, without the real effect that homeopathy can have. So unless the students, they see that and how this happens, unless they see the miracle with one dose that there is a change, how can they believe? It's very difficult to believe. Who is going to show them? The teachers. But if the teachers, they hide behind theories and things like that, and they are not able to demonstrate it, really, who is going to believe them? Then the teachers, those who they have to demonstrate something, they rely on very low potencies, which they usually have some effect, and mixtures of remedies. So we have to create an accreditation committee that will recognize that this teacher, the John and the Peter and are good standard teachers, and you could follow them, but this has to be accredited by a forum, by a committee that can recognize the validity of such teachers. So these teachers could teach like teaching in a class in their own country, but through our means that we have today, this could be projected in every country. So it's not difficult if the will is there. There is no will for such a thing. Because it's who is George, who is John, who is this, I am better than them. So if there is this kind of mentality, it's very difficult.
But I really think that your e-learning program is breaking barriers. and students across the world are now able to get the best of education from you. And I really feel that as many students as possible should enroll in the e-learning program of the Academy, because you get the best Hahnemannian education that anybody can get anywhere in the world. And with the level of connectivity that we have, the speed of internet that we have, it's like sitting in the classroom here. So I don't feel now that anybody can give an excuse that we don't have good teachers, so we can't become good homeopaths. You have the e-learning program of the Academy, and I think every serious homeopathic student and homeopath should investigate the possibility of taking up the e-learning program at the Academy. It is an excellent program. George.
This is, thank you for what you are saying and the appreciation of my teaching. I don't believe I'm the only one that can really demonstrate the effect of homeopathy. There are quite a lot of people, but they are opposed by teachers who are afraid that if this is exposed publicly, they will go out of their profession, you see, profession that they are teaching homeopathy. There is a lot of resistance for my teaching from teachers who they say, don't go to homeopathy, don't go to George, don't go to George. The other day, I don't remember, you were here, an English doctor, a medical doctor was here.
Yes.
And was telling me that by the time I was teaching, the faculty, people who taught there in London, they were telling the younger doctors, if anybody goes to George, to listen to George, will be stricken off the faculty. Their names will be
removed.
Yeah, it's a criminal act. You know, this kind of thing continues. There is no question.
There is a saying in India, Satyamev Jayate, which means the truth wins in the end. And as you said, that we have to do what we have to do and leave the rest to the God and destiny.
What else?
Yes, that's the best we can do. And the way you are working for homeopathy at this age, you are an inspiration. Not just to me, to thousands and thousands of homeopaths who come here. I have seen such love in their eyes. I don't have words to reproduce those feelings. Yeah. I've seen people here who are coming here since last close to 20 years, and they come here every year. And I've put question to them, what is it that brings you back? I mean, it cannot be knowledge. It cannot just be knowledge. And they all feel that there is something more. It's your charm. They love you. It's as simple as that. They love you.
But also, maybe you may not believe, but coming back and seeing cases is like being an apprentice in a hospital.
Yes, that's true.
Looking at a new case, that's a new idea. The way that I analyze the case intrigues them and makes them feel they are learning. Even the medical doctors, they are learning.
They've mentioned that. They've mentioned that they come here because every new case that you take live, it's like a new class. It's a new challenge. It's a new class. Yes. Every case teaches them something.
Yes.
And I think this is the best form of teaching. And I really hope that this form of teaching, where every homeopathic teacher takes live cases and shows the results to the students, should be the standard form of homeopathic education across the world. I really feel that.
That's correct, but we have to be aware because people can have one case recorded or two cases very successful. Yes. They take these two cases in a congress. They say, here is my practice. But when you go to their practice, really, it's only these two cases that were successful. And you have to be very careful in choosing, really, who has standard results and can really explain why he gave the remedy. So this is the main idea. Unless the people understand that they have to have an explanation why you gave that remedy, they will not accept. If I come and I say, I come inside this remedy, this agaricus case, give agaricus, see the results. Maybe the result they will see, but they will say, why you gave agaricus? I have to know.
Yes. George, it has been wonderful talking to you on such diverse topics, and it is always a pleasure to have a word with you. I have been fortunate enough to have long conversations with you through Skype, through email, and now in person. But there is a lot that homeopaths around the world can learn from you. I would like you to give all the homeopathic students and homeopaths a message, a direction for them to become better homeopathic students, better homeopaths, practicing homeopaths, and better homeopathic teachers. The way you want them to be and the way they should take forward to be the true disciples of Hahnemann.
Well, it's always very difficult to talk about myself, but what I can say at this moment is that together with several teams of people, I have created this e-learning program, as you said, which I consider it to be quite complete, giving a lot of information. With another team, I have created a tool, which is the Vithoulkas compass, which can help people find the correct remedy. And on the other hand, I have written the third part quite a lot in materia medica and theory, so people can learn from my books. So my advice to the people could be that they should study as much as possible. This is my advice. And my wish is that they become better than me, all of them. So then I will be very, very happy. Most probably I will not be in this world, but I will be looking upon them from upstairs. And
do you have a vision for the Academy 20, 30, 50 years down the road?
The vision of the Academy, I believe, yes. There is going to be a group of people that they continue my work, that the teaching will continue here through all the videos and all the teaching, which is quite a lot actually. And that this will be a center for classical Hahnemannian homeopathy.
Excellence in classical homeopathy.
Well.
And we also have Vithoulkas compass now, your brain preserved for eternity.
I hope. We try to improve it as much as possible, yes, to make it as refined as possible. And also the learning goes more and more information in the learning. And I hope in the end I may be able to say what Hahnemann said in the end of his life. I did not live in vain.
That's so wonderful.
Well,
and I'm
we'll
sure
see.
that is the story of your life.
Well, we'll see.
So friends, it has been wonderful talking to the one and only Professor George Vithoulkas, and the message that we get from this interview is that to become good homeopaths, there are two essential qualities. The first quality is that you learn to be yourself. You learn to be true to yourself. You evolve as a spiritual being. And the second thing is that there are no shortcuts to become better homeopath. Study as much as you can. Work hard as much as you can. If the best in the business is still work hard, if George at 82 can still teach, can still study, can still work on software programs, what is it that is stopping you from working hard, from strengthening your roots? This is what this academy is for. If you ever get a chance in life to come here, be here. There's no other place on this earth like this. With these words, George, I thank you so much for being on a hot seat once again. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you
so
Manish.
much.
Thank you, Manish. And I must say, Manish, that you are a person that I consider really valuable in this effort to revive homeopathy in the world. And I have observed your efforts through history. And I see you are an honest person, a person with great talents and power, and I will be very happy that you may devote all your energies into reviving Hahnemanian homeopathy.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words.